School board meeting is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. The first item of business is the agenda approval. I recommend that the school board approve the agenda for the December 3rd, 2019 meeting. Is there a motion for Dr. Sinai?
Second.
Ms. Carter? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The next thing that we have to do is now to amend the agenda. We have added an additional personnel report. Is there a recommendation, a motion to amend the agenda to include the added personnel report?
I move that we amend the agenda with the added personnel report.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Dr. Brennan? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That moves us to the fun part of this meeting, the special presentation. Dr. Edwards?
Let me put this on so I can heard. Make sure I'm heard for this. Okay. And I'm going to read this to you, then add my own comments to it. But Miss Lonice Harris, who is an LCS school social worker, Virginia has more than 650 school social workers who serve our students and families, and we are very excited that our very own Lonice Harris was selected as this year's state school social worker of the year. And yes. That's out of 650. Annually, each region of Virginia Association of School Social Workers nominates a representative for their region, and candidates presented from each region are voted on by the VASSW Executive Board. Ms. Harris is in her 5th year as a school social worker for Lynchburg City Schools. She's part of a team of 5 social workers who are the link between home, school, and community in providing services to students, families, and school personnel. And for Ms. Harris, one of her favorite roles in her job is being an advocate for students and their families. So that's the official, what I had to read. But I just want to say, there are no words to describe Lonice except awesome. She is just an outstanding, awesome individual. I love working with her. She has a positive attitude, a can-do spirit, and she is all in for the kids and families here in Lynchburg City Schools. So we have a special award for her, and I don't know, oh, I see her back there. I was looking, hadn't seen her. So why don't you come on up, Lonice, so everybody can see you. Come over there to you.
Thank you on behalf of the board for all the work that you and your colleagues do for our students and our families. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Congratulations. We always mess up the group. I try not to. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Oh, that was fun. All right. The next special presentation is LCS Aspiring Administrators Recognition. I think this is Dr. Copeland.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm going to read a little bit, and I'll get up and introduce the folks that are here so you can recognize them for the hard work that they went through. 6 years ago, we decided to restart a program that had been in Lynchburg City Schools sometime before, and it was focused on growing our own administrators and finding our internal talent, getting them together and taking them through an experience of 6 different seminars to learn more about central administration, what the division does, And they also had to do some internship hours and other things like that. Fun things like attending school board meetings and city council meetings and walk-through observations with building principals and shadowing principals outside of their level, so middle school going to high school or elementary. Spending some time with the folks down here in central office, documenting all of that, reflecting on it. They learned about the LCS structure. We had things like assistant principals panels and principals panels that were opportunities for open dialogue. Had personnel come in and talk, and finance and curriculum instruction and student services and special education, so that they got a feel for all of the things that we do as administrators here and around our different buildings. For Lynchburg City Schools, since we started this program, this is now our third cohort to complete. There have been 44 completers. We'll recognize a few of those tonight. And of those 44 folks that have completed the program, 17 of them, which is really 39%, have progressed on to higher positions than they were at. So many of them right now are principals, assistant principals, not only in Lynchburg City Schools, but in other divisions. They have taken administration jobs. So the program has done what we hoped it would do. It has identified those with potential inside our division, helped grow them and develop them. So I wanted to take this opportunity to explain the program to you and then get them up here so you can recognize them and you can see their faces. And you can congratulate them for their commitment to things here in Lynchburg City Schools. So I don't know if Jamie Odessa snuck in here. Oh, there she is. Jamie Odessa is the first one. Come on up. Everybody's going to come up, and you can form up over here. Kathy Bragg. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Twyla Burns, also mother of a Heritage High School quarterback. Karen Camden. Letitia Elliott, she sneak in the back. Congratulations. Karen Heapy. Justin Henderson. Melissa Hester couldn't join us tonight. And Lori McVicker. And Christine Gusky-Paulus couldn't join us tonight unless she snuck in somewhere I didn't see her. And that's our group that completed for this year. It took a lot of time and effort because they have full-time jobs that occupy them to normally 3:30 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we just happened to start our seminars at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and went till 6:30, one day a month, so it kind of went over a full school year, and then they had some things to do over the summer, so it took a definite dedication in them to learn more about us, and we learned a lot more about them. So I congratulate you all for taking this step. This was the first opportunity that we had to get them all together. If somebody's got a camera, I'd like to get in there with them and somebody take a picture.
Well, while they're setting up the picture, I would like to thank you all for embarking on that, and certainly hope that you'll consider staying in Lynchburg for.
We're out here like we like each other. So we've had groups as big as about 28, and then we've had some groups at 10 or 12. So we started out really big, but we kind of stabilized doing it every 2 years at 10 to 15 folks. So
That's great.
thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. The third presentation is our audit report.
Right. All right, so it is time for our annual audit report. And we have Julie Moore here from Brown and Edwards.
And I sent you all via email. Okay, so everybody has that. Julie's going to give us a quick summary of the audit report. Thank you, Julie.
Good evening. My name is Julie Moore. I'm from Brown Networks. First, we'd like to thank you for allowing us to do your audit again this year. We love Kim and her staff. They're great. We start like in May, and we literally do not finish until November. And even though we're not in the field the whole time, we are emailing and calling Kim all the time, bugging her. And she's always like very accommodating, getting us the information we need super fast. And so we really want to say thank you to Kim and her staff because they make our audit great. If you take nothing else away, you should know that the schools and the city both had an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. And that is what every audit wants to be, is a clean opinion. And believe it or not, there are some audits that are not clean opinions, but you guys got one, so you should, give yourselves a pat on the back for that. Last year in the compliance section of the CAFR, there was a material weakness related to the schools. You guys implemented a new payroll system, and with that, there was some segregation of duties issues. It was corrected. When I came last year and presented, it had already been corrected. We noted that. So this year, if you looked at the compliance section of the city's CAFR, you would notice that that is not listed anymore. However, if you look in the management letter, under the prior year comments, you'll see it listed, but you'll see that it's been fixed. So next year, that'll go away. This year, because the schools implement a new payroll system and a financial system, we had an IT auditor to come in and do a full evaluation of the school's IT function. So on the management letter, you'll see some IT comments. They are purely suggestions from us. They're not something that you absolutely have to fix. We just suggest to make your IT structure stronger that you consider implementing these comments. The schools did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses this year. That's a positive. Besides that, you have an audit committee letter. In the audit committee letter, that kind of gives you an overview of the audit. If there were new GASB standards issued this year that significantly impacted the financials, that would be listed in there. However, there were none. The next thing in that letter is estimates, and we point estimates out because they're not true, real numbers. They're based on assumptions from the past and future expectations. And your biggest estimates relate to your pension and your OPEB. You also have your self-insured and then the asset lives of your fixed assets. After that, we have footnotes that we think you should read. Those are in there because we say if there's no other footnotes that you should read these. And most of them relate to your pension and your OPEB plan. And then I think we have, we also note your commitments, capital leases, and fixed assets. If we would have had a disagreement with management, it would have been noted in that letter, and as you can tell in the letter that we didn't have any. And that's all I have. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you for coming and being with us today and sharing the report. And so, just for one more opportunity to reiterate, everything is wonderful and fine and
Yes.
detailed and everything.
Yes.
All right.
Bottom line. Any other board questions? Mr. Harvey?
Regarding the recommended IT review, is that something that we'll take under advisement? And okay.
So some of that Amy had already put in place and had already done some testing, and I know that you had met and discussed quite a few of those things. So, but yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now we go to public comment. In accordance with policy BDDH, public participation, the school board welcomes requests and comments as established in the guidelines within that policy. Individuals who wish to speak before the school board shall have an opportunity to do so at this time. Persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to his or her official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services, policies, role, and/or responsibility of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall limit his or her comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of the presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Public comments are reserved for the public to provide input. The board does not respond to comments, answer questions, or otherwise engage in discussion at this time. Our first speaker, Brianna Patillo.
Good evening. I'm Brianna Patillo, and I'm here tonight to ask you to release the data on school suspensions every month so that everyone can see if we're making progress in your proposed goal of reducing suspensions that's mentioned in your strategic plan. During the 2017 to 2018 school year, 14% of the students who were suspended in the Lynchburg school system, there is a clear disproportionality when we look at the race. Way more black students had been suspended than there were white. We don't know how many students were suspended during the 2018 to 2019 school year because the State Department of Education has not released those figures yet. We can't tell what has happened within the last school year, so we can't really tell how we're doing, and at least the public is unaware. Local school officials have the data of the school suspensions because that is the source of the information where the Virginia Department of Education will eventually release it. So I'm asking tonight if we can move to more transparency and please release the data on suspensions monthly so that way we can see the progress that we're making to reduce suspensions and to reduce racism in the Lynchburg City Schools. Thank you.
The next speaker is speaking on behalf of Virginia Organizer, and it's, I'm going to not say it correctly, Cheseth.
Impossible to read your name. I have to apologize right off the bat. But I'm pleased to speak to you folks tonight on behalf of Virginia Organizing. And we want to thank you for the time and effort that you put in to improve our schools here in Lynchburg. You know, I don't know if everybody has seen this document. You've seen too much of it, I'm sure. I was blown away when I saw that. There are so many different issues that need to be addressed, and they all have an urgency, and I just don't know how you're keeping your heads together. But anyway, thank you for incorporating into this draft plan many concerns that of Virginia Organizing and the dozens of other individuals that have come to speak to this group. I speak especially about plans to address the achievement gap, school suspensions, sexual identity. You folks are taking them all on, and we certainly appreciate that. Tonight, I wanted to just focus a bit on the harmful implications of the excessive number of school suspensions. As Brianna just said, it's really hard to find current information about the rate of suspensions in Lynchburg schools and how many students are actually affected. I looked all over online, and what I could find, though, it was hard to find state information, except for the 2016-17 school years. So using that, I learned some startling things. I'll mention just three. The first was that nearly 10% of Virginia's school children were suspended in 2016-17. Nearly 1 in 10, which is just way, way too high a number. Secondly, as Brianna mentioned, African American students were suspended more than 4 times as often. It was 4.5 as so-called white kids. Now, what does that mean for a school district like ours where nearly 50% of our students are African American? And third, in Virginia in 1916, 3,000 children in grades kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd were suspended. That just is mind-boggling. I couldn't believe it. When a child at that age is put out of school, it is not the child that has failed, it's our society. That study went on to say there was a distinct correlation between high suspension rates and economically disadvantaged areas. So the children who are most needy are also the most vulnerable. What does a suspension do to a child's self-esteem? They are probably already living with embarrassment and shame. What does it do to their relationship to persons of authority? I suggest create anger and fear. It may confirm their feeling that their teacher does not really care for them. And we need to stop expecting teachers to do everything. Coming from a family of teachers, I know how unfair that is. It's clear that Lynchburg schools need more counselors, more social workers, more teaching assistants, as well as more teachers. And we need these people to be as diverse as our schools are. Quickly, 2 suggestions. The first is that I hope you folks will demand help from us, the parents, the grandparents, the friends, as you struggle with all these challenges. For example, some of us are prepared to help you convince state legislators that more state funding is needed, and enlist our support when budget talks come up at the city council. We need you to feed us the information. Secondly, and this touches on something I've talked about here before, we need more volunteers in the classroom. We need friendly people sitting at the back of the room who could take a child, who would be able to take a child that's disturbed or unhappy and interrupting. Take them out and read to them, or draw with them, or walk them around the school and explore, something to take the pressure off the teacher. Thank you.
Mr. Potter?
I want to say good evening to everyone, Dr. Edwards, Dr. Copeland, and our school board, and everybody here. I want to say good evening. I'm just going to had 2 concerns at the last school board meeting, but I just want to address that the board, when I plead to y'all, did y'all check on that wage adjustment for the delivery drivers and groundsmen? I hope y'all had a discussion about that, because of the wage that's low, and try to bring it up to the duties that we do for Lynchburg City School. And so therefore, like I said, I'm a delivery driver, and I'm speaking on behalf of the groundsman people too. But one thing I can tell y'all tonight, that you have a good grounds crew, a good delivery driver system. And I'm not standing here just for myself. I'm standing for the guys to represent, because I asked them to come tonight just for more support, but some of them don't have that ability to be in open forum. So I'm standing here not by myself. I'm standing here with goodness on this side and mercy on this side. That means support and love. So therefore, I'm coming for you that if you could really consider just looking, I mean, y'all might not look, but look again at the difference of the wage that the delivery driver and the groundsman make, and bring it up to sufficient status. Because I'm retired from another company. Like I told Dr. Edwards and Dr. Copeland, I said, I'm here as extra income just like anybody else. But I'm fighting for those guys going to have a remaining time here for longevity. My longevity is not going to be long, because I'm already retired. But anything to help those, to help me also. So please, like I talked to Dr. Edwards and Dr. Copeland, they took it to the finance, they denied it. I understand denial. But when you sitting around this table here, and I think it's 5 doctors here, and rest is 9 of you, 4 of them very educated. So sit down and look at the wage that we are making for delivery drivers and custodian. And this is the paper right here. We are way up here. That's the low. That's the high down here. So now cold weather come. Y'all probably seen them today. That they burn up. You getting leaves. That's why snow gonna fall. So compensate us what we need to be compensated for, because we're doing a fabulous job, I think. Because most people wouldn't stay out there in that type of element like that. But I'm telling you, y'all, Lynchburg City School, y'all a fine organization. So keep the good work up, and I thank you.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Hi.
A group.
Am I clocked again? Yeah. I can't see it though. Okay. Hi, my name is Vicente Gonzalez. This is the most nervous I've ever been talking here today. First I want to say congratulations, and I really want to commend Allison Jordan and Mrs. Womack and Dr. Edwards on the work that has been done in the school system to support undocumented youth. It's absolutely incredible to have all these resources available to the public. Now I just think it's time to go out into the community and share those resources, right? But today I actually wanted to talk about the conversations regarding including sexual orientation and gender identity in the anti-discrimination policy, right? I'm a graduate of EC Glass High School. I graduated in 2009, and I'm also a member of the LGBTQ community. And I can definitely say that although I have like amazing memories from Glass, I had an extremely difficult time, right? And when it comes to queer people and queer students, what we see right now is a lot of uncertainty. We don't really know what is happening in the schools with queer students because it's not really being measured yet, right? But in my experience at EC Glass, a lot of the conversations around bullying, and I actually want to sort of step away from the language of bullying and really try to frame it around harassment, right? That queer students are being harassed in the school system. And most of the bullying that I experienced was actually witnessed by teachers, right? There was one time that a teacher intervened in 4 years, right? And that's something that I explicitly remember. I remember more of the teachers that were there than the actual bullies. So we need to take into account that like queer students have a much higher rate of depression, suicide, and substance abuse, right? Also, queer people need to have a place at the table in these conversations. Because Virginia is one of 28 states that doesn't have statewide worker protections, it's really unclear how many faculty and staff are part of the queer community, right? How many people on the equity task force are in the queer community. Even in this group, it's unclear, right? Because statistically, 1 or 2 of you should be queer too. But in reality, Lynchburg simply isn't a safe place for queer people to be as out and open as they would like. So we need to have the queer community be a part of these conversations. Secondly, like, what does this actually mean for the overall curriculum, right? Because when I was at EC Glass, marriage equality hadn't passed yet. So homophobia was embedded into the curriculum. The teachers would facilitate conversations, really putting queer students on the line where we faced immense disrespect and immense inhumanity. As I said, it's uncertain how much of that is still happening because it's not being measured. We know that there are GSAs, we know that there are queer affirming teachers, but we really don't know how many there are, and that's not really being enforced. I also wanted to say, also, what types of trainings are faculty and staff gonna abide? Are y'all just gonna pass this measure. Hopefully, I assume it's going to pass. I recommend it passes. But is it going to come along with some type of training, right? How is this going to be enforced? Secondly, we can't talk about the LGBT community as if it's separate from other communities, you know? It doesn't matter what your color is, your racial identity, your ethnic group, your religion. People in your community are queer, right? So we're everywhere. So it's impossible to talk about queer people without talking about, you know, poverty, homelessness, suspensions, the achievement gap, right? Racism, immigration, and especially the kids who are in foster care, right? We don't talk a lot about foster care students enough. So I really just want to close out with saying that I don't want y'all to think that passing this resolution is going to be a part of ending discrimination. It simply can't be the solution. It's really the beginning, right? All these other little things need to change because homophobia has been such a part of Lynchburg City school system. All of that needs to be dismantled. I really recommend the creation of an LGBT task force because the bottom line is that the Equity Task Force has so much on its plate already dealing with issues of racism in the schools, you know, because racism is such a huge issue in the schools. The issues regarding queer students really aren't being talked about in the way we need them to, you know? So my recommendation as a way to bring queer people in our community at the table is to create an independent LGBT task force. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance report, Ms. Connage?
Hi, good evening. I am presenting the finance report through October 31st. This is your standard report. The one thing that has changed is you'll notice that the budget has gone up, and that is due to the prior year since the audit is completed. Those open POs that were kept from prior year has been moved over, and that the money is received in the prior year, but it will be actually paid in this year. So you will see that as your revenue going up and also as your expenditures going up. At this point, the budget received is 19.59% of your revenue, and your expenditures as 27.25. Again, some of that is your prior year expenditures that were pushed over, and some of your revenues are not yet being received because they were lottery funded. We also have an update on the health insurance at the bottom. It looks high. There's 5 payments in the month. That always makes it on paper look like a bad month. They were a couple of weeks that we were concerned because they were higher, but they are starting to go back down. So we don't just do this once a month. Every week we are waiting for that bill, and we are closely monitoring it. We have attached the updated revenue reports and the expenditure reports that tie into this agenda report. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you very much for the report. Just a couple of clarifications. On the
Page 2 on the statement for the statement of revenue, under the E-rate reimbursement, I know that was a program that ended this previous year, and we still have some income coming in this year. That is just left over from the previous year, and that will eventually stop, or we didn't budget anything for that as far as income goes.
That is correct. There was no budget put in there. It has been, the cell phone portion has been tapering off as they did disband that portion. That we still do get some E-rate revenue. I cannot, because this was the prior year, the budget that was passed, I can't say why it was brought down to 0. It is a decrease, and it's been a significant decrease every year. And I don't know if it's because the cell phones had been phased out, but we still get some for the hardware and some of the other IT things. So I would anticipate we would look at this and adjust it for next year, that you would see the E-rate revenue.
Great. And just one on the same page, just a clarification, and I'm sure this is straightforward, but at the bottom where we have designation encumbrances for this year, 850,000 budgeted, and then we have 850,000, the same amount as far as budget balance. Is that just a accounting piece that we just make those two numbers the same, or?
Those are those open purchase orders.
Right.
When you're saying, I'm not sure I understand the question.
So the budgeted amount of 850,000 is the same as the budget balance. So
That
because-
money is never going to be recorded as being received in this year because
Okay.
it was money that was allowed through the audit to say
Mhm.
that that was a prior year expense. So the money was, we've actually received the money already, and it's already been calculated in the true up with that fund balance.
I see.
So you will never see the revenue actually coming in for that because we've already received it. It's accounted for in the prior year.
So that will just stay the same for this
Yes,
year, on
sir.
this year's
Mhm.
budget? That
Yes,
amount.
sir.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? Thank you. That moves us to the consent part of the agenda. Recommend the approval of the amended consent agenda, which includes school board meeting minutes, November 6th, regular board meeting, school board retreat, October 11th, public budget hearing, October 29th, student discipline committee meetings, October 24th, October 30th, and November 7th, the amended personnel report, and religious exemptions.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Have a motion to second, Ms. Carter? Any discussion?
Just one quick comment, which I think that Willis Vanderwerker is on this list as far as retiring as of the end of this year, and I'm not sure that Willis is here tonight. Okay. Oh, there he is. That's why he's on the other side, in a
Well,
different seat, trying
I'd
to
already
fool
told
us
Willis
all.
that we weren't going to accept it.
There you, exactly right, exactly right. But I just want to comment that, as we all know, Mr. Vanderwerker does just a phenomenal job for Lynchburg City Schools for almost 25 years. I'm surprised he didn't want to go for that one more year to make it an even number, an odd number, but just to recognize what a great job he's
Thank
done.
you.
I know the board wants to do that, so I just wanted to point
Thank
that
you.
out.
Any other comments? All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All righty. School board representative comments. We have tonight, we're going to start with Heritage High School. Mr. Garland?
So good evening. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. I know everyone at LCS enjoyed the short little break we got. And I would just like to talk a little bit about some of the things that happened within Heritage during November. So our DECA team got the opportunity to volunteer at Miller Park to help clean up the park. They helped by spreading mulch and picking up trash, and even a few students hugged a few trees. Another thing that's been going on within Heritage is SOL remediation. They've been helping students so they can pass their SOLs and receive the credits that they need to graduate, and that is going to continue for the rest of the year. Gear Up had 2 trips throughout November. One was to the Shenandoah University, and the other one was to ODU and an aquarium. Both of these trips allowed students to see if they wanted to attend either of these universities, and the aquarium was just a nice little break. Virginia College Application Week was a huge success at Heritage. All of the seniors took advantage of this opportunity, and they applied to all the colleges that they wanted to for free. And a lot of students also seized the opportunity for the on-site admissions, and the majority of our students did get accepted to the colleges that they wanted to go to. Another thing that happened was 4 people got inducted into the Heritage High School Hall of Fame, and they were Alvin Wright, I can't see that. I think it's Grant Achilles, Latrice Morris, and Cameron Carter, and they were just recognized for their amazing achievements. The girls' track team got recognized again for their amazing achievement by winning states last season, and this time they got recognized by City Hall. I think Taylor talked about Luke Richards beating the school record last time. He beat the record last time with a time of 6:14 in a 5K, and this time he beat his own record again with a time of 16:12 in a 5K in the 3A state championship. He also got offered a full ride to Radford University that I'm pretty sure he's taking advantage of. keep skipping the slides. KJ Vaughn was recognized as the Week 11 Player of the Week, and there's a lot of great things happening with Heritage Football. We won the 3C champion regional competition, and now we're moving on to states, so hopefully we'll seize that state championship title for the second year in a row. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Murata, let's hear about what's going on at Glass.
Well, I mean, I just have this so I can see what slides tonight. It's kind of like a cheat sheet. All right. Hi, I'm Christopher Murata, and I'm the representative for EC Glass. So this is a little bit about what's going on in December. So first off, in sports, cross-country team, the girls team actually did qualify for the state meet, and 4 of the boys also qualified for that. It was in Great Meadow, the Plains, which I also learned that the Plains is a place in Virginia. That confused me a little bit when I found that out, but thought that was kind of cool. Anyway, also Jet Davidson, she's a really fast person, and she got 10th in the state meet, which is really cool. There's actually a picture of her up there holding the medal I believe she got from that. It's also basketball season. Last night, the girls had their first game against Gretna. They won 69-54, and they're going to be going over to Gretna next Friday to challenge them again. The boys are playing JF on this Friday, so that'll be exciting. And yeah, so as you know, we're finishing up with the fall sports. We're moving into winter. Wrestling starting up, cheer, swim, indoor track. There's a lot going on with athletics at Glass. And also I wanted to point out that you can actually check the schedule on the Seminole District website, which that's really cool and nice to see. If you don't follow Glass on social media, that's another place you can find it. There we go. Okay, sorry. So our football season came to an unfortunate end. Salem was a really good team. Unfortunately, I couldn't see the game. I was up in DC, but I was definitely listening to it on the radio. And you know, up at halftime, I was feeling really good, and then unfortunately, Salem pulled a few plays that definitely disappointed me. But it was from what I could tell, it was a really close game. I didn't see it happen, but I could hear it, and you know, a lot of my friends were there, and it looked like there was a lot of excitement going on. But so Glass ended the season with 11 wins and 2 losses, which I consider to be pretty good. So those are some more recent pictures. All right, and so we actually had a Holocaust survivor come and speak at Glass earlier, or I guess later last month, but anyway, towards the end of November. And she came in during the morning and talked to the students, and they had a big assembly, and she got to tell her story. But leading up to this, a lot of the English teachers at Glass actually held discussions. So like in my class, we spent, I believe, 2 days just kind of talking about it, what led up to it, learning about her story, and just the event in general. So, you know, there's kind of a crossover between history and English there. And I think it opened up a lot of good discussions. So she led a school-wide assembly in the morning, and then later on she met with a smaller group of students, and they did some, you know, they had refreshments, and they talked, and they got to ask some questions. So as you guys know, we had the legislative breakfast at Glass. Their culinary arts department did a really awesome job catering it. It was really good. And it was cool to see a lot of our legislators there listening to what we had to say. Okay. So we also had a pep rally. You can see Rami over there with Ms. Ligon. Rami's our mascot. It's starting to make a comeback this year. He's been to a few of the football games, and he was also at the assembly. Those are some pictures from it, and it had representatives from the marching band, football team, cheerleaders. All of them were out there, or I guess in the auditorium, you know, pepping us up, getting us ready for the Pulaski game. And also tonight, in about 15 minutes, so if you run, you can probably make it. The Glass is going to be having its first PTO meeting for this year. It's going to be in the Maria Waller Lecture Hall. It's going to kind of get the PTO started. I believe it's open to everybody, anybody that wants to come. And it's co-chaired by Julie Salmon and Jenna Haskey, and that is the email for it there. If you have any questions, I'm sure that they would be able to answer them. And we also had Virginia College Application Week. It was from the 18th to the 22nd of November. All the applications were free. That's really cool. So not just the applications in Virginia, but actually like everywhere, I believe. So, you know, it saves a lot of money because, as I've learned, applying to colleges can be expensive. So it was really cool to have that opportunity. And many of the colleges, just like at Heritage, came and offered on-site admission opportunities for a lot of our students. And also, as we're kind of getting into the winter season, we have basically what they're calling the 12 Days of Winter Spirit. So those are what they are. It's kind of small there, but it's going to go through the month, and there are a few cool ones I'm kind of excited about. I have a very cool Christmas suit coming in the mail hopefully tomorrow, so yeah. And that's all I have.
Lots going on. Thank you. Right. That leads us to school board committee reports. The only one that I think we had was from the STEM Academy.
The STEM Academy did meet on November the 12th, and it was just an update as to the number of new students. There were 28 new students, 24 returning students. They're studying engineering, biotech, health sciences, and cybersecurity, and they're planning on a good year for this year at the STEM Academy.
Advisory committees, equity task force.
Yep. The Equity Task Force did meet last month, and we went over the OCR report a little bit more in detail, and also talked a little bit about priorities, and I'll let Ms. Reeves just give a quick summary.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Edwards stated, we met with our new members, and it was a very exciting time to really reset and go back through our foundational structure. We did go over our equity concept map, which explains just what it is we're doing with regard to student success and how it is that all of our, we don't use the word lenses, all of our habits are related to equity. We also went through the working document of the comprehensive strategic plan and helped the Equity Task Force understand how the equity habits are embedded in that plan. The OCR data that you saw, I want to say the week before, was explained to them and really gave them something to tangible to see, to review. Part of their homework is to review that and send us back some comments. This group, I believe, is going to be very intentional about doing what the advisory committee is charged to do, and that's to make recommendations to the school board. They're very excited and are grateful for their opportunities to serve on that task force. So thank you.
Health Advisory also met on the same day in the afternoon, and I'll give a quick report on that. They are pleased to participate in, or we are pleased to participate in the Pillowcase Project. Gave you a little bit about that last month, but I'll give you a little more detail. This is a project from the American Red Cross Disaster Preparedness Information for our third grade students. So the committee originally thought we were going to conduct it in May, but we're actually going to do it, I believe, in January. The project is a one-time presentation, 30 to 40 minutes for each third grade class, and it's going to really teach the students about how to be prepared at home. So we're real excited about that and excited about the work that Ann Gentry has done with our School Health Advisory Committee.
Thank you. We now are going to comprehensive strategic plan discussion. Dr. Edwards?
Yes, and I'm going to invite Dr. Coleman up to join me in this. I will say that our working document will hopefully be transmitted into the document by December 13th, I think is the date that I gave everybody for all the edits and updates to the working comprehensive strategic plan. We have tried to share that with as many groups as possible to get as much feedback as possible, and are pleased that people are mentioning it and actually using it to guide the work forward. And with that in mind, I will say, and I was going to save this for my comments, but I'll do it right now. One of the things as we talk about the equity work, and as I just follow up on what one of our public comments, Mr. Gonzalez had mentioned, you know, a couple weeks ago I went to Project Inclusion with the 20 Glass students, 20 Heritage students plus staff, And I will say both groups came away, and I don't want to steal their thunder, they each had a problem that they had to define, and they had to come up with a theme and an activity that they're going to do during the school year. But what I was most impressed with is one of the things that both groups of kids pointed out was this sense of verbal dehumanization, whether that's race, whether it's gender, or anything, and not only, you know, just in their classrooms, but hallways, locker rooms, between classes. It was very important for both groups to point that out as being one of the things that both groups felt very strongly as their number one mission to look at. So to answer the question how seriously we're taking some of the work, I know the kids are, and they're ready and engaged to do some of that work. So I'm real proud about that, and there'll be more to come with that. It's also one of the priorities of the Equity Task Force, as they talked about priorities as well. And yes, to the question of will we be doing training, yes, yes, yes. Okay, with that, I want to shift to a different part of our strategic plan, which is closing the achievement gap. And this month we are focusing on Heritage High School, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Coleman, who has provided us with a wonderful handout too. Take us through.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to share with you kind of the next phase of our linking the strategic plan to kind of the school improvement efforts we're making in the division. Heritage High School had been working on achievement gap, and they were working on that gap in the math area, and that was based on the school improvement plan is from 2018, because that's when that gap would have been identified. So we're kind of looking at the results of that based on the last year's testing, you know, at the end of the school year. So with that, with the division strategic plan, of course, it's focusing on in goal 1, the student growth and development and success. The things that tie to that from Heritage's plan is during the 2018-19 school year, which was the past school year, Heritage will improve the pass rate in math by 10%, and our goal is to also reduce the failure rate for our black students, exceptional ed students, and the economically disadvantaged students by 10%. Some of the strategies that they had in place for doing that really were to conduct observations, and for the principal and assistants to be in the classrooms and offer feedback to teachers, and to offer suggestions with that, and to make sure that the written, taught, and assessed curriculum was aligned. And then also for the groups that we were most concerned with, also identifying groups of kids that maybe were having difficulty, and creating a cohort and working with those groups of kids to track them through their performance. So really what they're working towards is really creating that culture in place where we're not letting anyone fall through the cracks. We're identifying who the kids are, and we're monitoring that closely, and groups of teachers talk about strategies that we could do to change things and make sure the groups are successful. Listed below is the performance. So the 17-18 performance was what identified those gaps as being lower than they should have been, and then you have also to the right are the 18-19 results, and the dramatic increase in performance of all those groups at Heritage High School. It's just a remarkable improvement, and with that on the second page, that puts those indicators all at level 1, which would be in green. So all of those areas are there. Having a couple of specifics that I asked for in talking with the principal in that building was just really the math department was really zeroed in on providing that targeted remediation for specifically what students needed, and really using a lot of data analysis and being very targeted in what they were doing to address needs with kids. They also were working very collaboratively to remediate students, and enlisted some additional staff. We always try to have a bit of funds available for some extra folks to come in to provide us some assistance where we need to, and we have a good group of retired folks that were teachers that will come in and assist. So we always keep that in reserve. And then additional planning focused on the students that required math testing or needed a math test in order to meet the requirements for graduation. So really zeroing in on exactly what the students needed to make sure that they could meet the requirement to be able to graduate on time with their top priorities. It was noted that the chronic absenteeism and the dropout rate are level 2, which is will certainly make you fully accredited, but it's an area that the principal's concerned with. We actually met last week, and we're talking about some of the strategies that they use to address the deficits in the gap groups. He's using the same kind of thought process with the chronic absenteeism and dropout, which is creating cohorts of kids that you're watching and monitoring and figuring out what's going on and putting strategies in place and working with those kids to ensure that they move forward. Yes.
Going back to the chart on the front page, and for those people who are watching and can't see this chart on the front page, I do want to note that this is 1 year's worth of growth. And in many cases, you see double-digit growth. And since Dr. Brennan, you pointed out Mr. Vanderwerker, I'm going to go down to students with disabilities and just make a public note that our kids have increased their performance from 23% of the children passing or demonstrating growth to 73% of the children demonstrating growth. That does not happen without the significant dedication of the Heritage High School staff, the math department, the special ed department, the assistants, probably custodians, cafeteria workers. Everybody was all in at Heritage High School when it really came down to the goal of we want to improve our math performance. So it just goes to show the tremendous amount of good work that can be done when the school community unites and really focuses on their goals. So I just wanted to say that I am extremely proud of the work that they've done, and kudos to them, and keep it going.
And I guess as a final point, did want to include some of the enrollment information in some of our advanced courses at Heritage High School, and just looking at the percentages, and that's certainly something that we are monitoring and we are looking at and working on strategies to always make sure that we're equitable and that our proportions are appropriate, and seeing that we have a pretty good spread of students in the classes. And one thing that I did want to note that we are seeing as a trend moving forward is number of students who are identifying as multiple races. So that's a category that doesn't show and wouldn't have shown back a few years previously. In many of the classes, it's between 5 and 10% are identifying as themselves as with multiple races. So, but anyway, did want to share that information with you. And also there is a trend too with increasing numbers in some of the early college and with the courses that would be dual enrollment. So I think you have students that are making a conscious choice to frankly take courses that would get them some college credit. So it's it's their choice, and they're seeing the value in that and taking advantage of that. So as we open more options for students, then some of the they move away from other areas because they see the value in some of the options that we're offering.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Coleman, as Dr. Edwards just stated, it's remarkable improvement. My question would be, across the years, sometimes we will see schools that need to improve go up and then they go back down.
Right.
And we have that kind of fluctuation. Of course, you can have different students. What is the plan to create sustainability around those numbers sustaining themselves and continuing to grow over time? Or do we just how do we deal with that?
Well, I think the plan for this is really it's creating that culture where you're looking at data continuously and you're looking for students that need that extra assistance so that students don't fall through the crack. that's how you end up with the kind of growth we have here, and that's also how you sustain it. You just can't ever take your eye off of what you need to be aware of, and making sure that students do get the extra assistance that they need, and in a lot of cases just the support to be able to do that. So it's certainly part of their plan for school improvement moving forward. Just because we've got this much growth, we're not done yet. We want more. So that was certainly a part of the conversation we had just last week.
Additional comments? Dr. Phillips.
Question on the chart on the last page, the percentages, is that the percentage of students in that class, or is that the percentage of that population taking that class?
That's just the students in the class.
Okay. And then I guess the other question I had in terms of ties in with sustainability, you were talking about using the SOL prediction sheets to track performance. And do you track how well the prediction sheets actually match the actual student performance?
Right, we do look at that.
And I ask that because that's been used in the past, and it seemed like it didn't track very well.
Right. We've almost, what we're looking at now really is thinking about the information we get is more diagnostic, rather than it being just a straight predictor of whether or not a child will pass or not pass. We're really analyzing that and looking for strengths and weaknesses, and then working on the areas that are weak. Okay. And we've also really teachers have worked with having smaller assessments and things that take place in between the bigger assessments. So making sure that our daily practice is doing the same thing. But it's largely moving kind of from that mindset to that it's providing us information, moving to a mindset where it's providing me the information I need as a teacher to address a problem and help a child move forward.
I think in our streamlining of some of our software support programs, and I'll just mention like iExcel being one of them that we use, it allows for the right now, what I call the right now action, so I can see where that child is performing, where those deficiencies might be, and I can address it right now rather than just using it as a predictor of this is what's going to happen later. And these programs also give the child the opportunity to practice to bring that skill up, so I can see improvement right now. And I, last week I think it was, I happened to actually go to a class at Glass and sit with a couple of kids while they practice on their iExcel so that I could see this in action and see those kinds of things. So that goes to your sustainability question too, to really keep monitoring the kids. But one of the big pieces here, at least when I was talking to children, is how do we also transfer that to them, self-monitoring, and how do they monitor their right now and recognizing here's my deficiency and this is an area where I need to improve as well, and own it. And that's the kind of the work that I was doing with some of the kids that I was working with.
Additional questions?
What Dr. Mills was saying. So the last page that has the statistics, Heritage High School Advanced Courses 2019, 2020. So this year, Advanced American History, 55% of the class is black and 24% is white.
Right.
And AP American History, 45% is black and 36% are white.
Right.
Okay. Because it just seems like that compared to other courses we've looked at which there are clearly usually more white students in advanced class. I mean, obviously one of the issues we talk about frequently, but that's quite a significant difference.
Right, and that's exactly what it means.
Great.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I asked Dr. Coleman to break this data down for Heritage High School is when you combine the two schools, it looks a little different. And you may not think that there is progress in certain areas, but when you separate the schools, you'll see things like this, where
it's great.
It looks very different in classrooms.
Thank you.
So that means when you put the two schools together, the skew becomes way different.
Depends on the course.
Yeah,
you might
looks,
see some differences
it looks really
in course. And remember, these
different.
are percentages, so when you actually, if I have one section and the other school has two sections, it might skew it a lot more than we're not because of the number of children that are in the course. But again, if going back to our data focus, if we're not doing due diligence, pulling that data apart, saying, you know, what does it look like when I walk into classes at Heritage High School? And that was the focus that we took. And I think that's one of the things that we heard you all say, that we always get this big data, big picture data, but not the specifics. And this will help us with our work and targeting. So we need to find the areas of, you know, where do we need to improve the balance, so to speak, and ask some of the good questions. You know, if you look at some of the courses, you'll see high enrollment, then you'll see something like, what is that, Advanced Algebra 2. You're like, ooh, that's a little bit lower. And why is that? Is that a function of math subject or preference or what? So it just gives us more data so we can go in and really look at some of the differences.
So will we see this for Heritage, for EC Glass?
We're
also?
working on, yeah, each month we give you a different school so that you get a lens through that school.
So overall, at Heritage, what percentage of students are white? Are they a minority at Heritage?
They are.
They are.
Okay.
It's the school. The last I looked was running around 70% African American.
How many?
70%.
70%
African American.
Okay.
And
Yeah, because you need that to add context to these
Right.
percentages.
Yes.
It does.
But it's still looking, so, yeah, it's still looking pretty good.
Dr. Coleman, did you have
No, I think that the board members are perceiving the obvious in that regard. I don't need to say no more about that.
All right, thank you.
That's really good, yeah.
Moves us to unfinished business, high school program of studies. Hope everybody had a great time reading all this. This is for action tonight. Do you have any questions, comments? Dr. Coleman?
I stated this previously, and I take confidence in what's being presented to us. But I've just been taken by, and I think I mentioned this to Dr. Edwards, is no deep revelation. It's just that one of the superintendents in Virginia stated that if there's going to be any effort of achieving a narrowing of the achievement gap, it's all centered around the curriculum and really having a process. And I guess so I'm asking, as I continue to go forward, to have a greater understanding of what is our process of really making sure our curriculum, in this instance is high school, in other instances will be middle school, to make sure that our curriculum is really aligned in such a way that it is meeting the needs of the students so that they can learn. And so I'm just curious about that going forward, and I'm relying on our experts to help guide us in that process.
Dr. Sinai?
I had a question on page 8. Just help me understand the heading of that table. Students entering for the first time in 2018-19. Is that correct?
yes, it would be transfer students that are coming in to the school setting, to a Virginia school at that time, or to Lynchburg City schools.
I guess I'm confused because this is an updated book, right?
Yes.
If the student that entered in 1819
They would be-
hasn't graduated yet,
Oh,
that
okay. That's
program of
the-
study still applies to them.
Okay, so this is kind of a grandfather
Yes. Right.
clause. Okay, gotcha. That's what I thought, but I wasn't clear. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, like I said, this is for action. Is there a motion to approve the high school program of studies?
Move to approve the high school program studies.
Thank you, Dr. Nellis. Dr. Sinai? Any further questions or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next, we go to Lynchburg City School Board Instruction and Program Policies.
So these are the policies that you saw last month. The first one, JHH, has a star by it. It's just there. You're not taking action on that, but we thought since you're reviewing the reg, sometimes it's helpful to have the policy so you can see what the policy says as you review the regs. The suicide prevention reg, we did make the amendment with the SRO consultation as noted from the last board meeting, as well as the field trip amendment that was discussed at the last board meeting. So you'll see those two items striked out, as a strikeout in the policies. School admission, again, there's language in there regarding the foreign exchange student policy or discussions that we had. And then the copyright, there's just the language regarding print and non-print materials. And the remaining policies are up for deletion.
Any questions or comments? This is for action. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Is there a second? Ms. Evans? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Lynchburg City School Board Personnel Policies.
All right, Ms. G. And these were also presented last month. And I don't know that anything changed on these because there were no amendments or no additional discussion. So they are the same as they were last month, unless you have questions.
Any questions?
Move the adoption.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Lynchburg City School Board Operations Policies and Regulations. Dr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. This policy packet, which was a fairly thick one, was presented last month. There was one question that Dr. Brennan tabled that Ms. Towns looked into. I believe that question was answered sufficiently to Dr. Brennan's satisfaction, so we didn't receive any other questions. So I'd entertain any you might have tonight.
Questions? Thank you, Ms. Towns, for clarifying that point. This is for action tonight. Is there a motion from the board?
I move that we accept the policies as stated.
Ms. Carter, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Brennan, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, we're at new business. All right, middle school program of studies. Dr. Coleman.
I have before you the updated middle school program of studies up for first reading tonight. The changes in the program of studies were minimal, mainly clarifying language and moving some things around for the academic support heading for the RISE courses because they fall more under academic support rather than core. So it was the committee felt like it was more reasonable to have it in that section. Other changes with it, there was just an error really in the code for one of the courses for algebra, Foundations of Algebra. It's not an academic course, so it didn't need the A in the code. For world languages, we just wanted to note for clarity for parents' sake that in taking certain world languages, it may require transportation to be able to go to another school to get the language. So on the case that it's not offered at a particular school, it may be necessary for a student to go to a high school to be able to take the course. Basically the math course placement, we just updated the language to indicate the testing that's being used currently, which is the student growth assessment, which is the SGA, and changing that to quarterly assessments, which is the new assessment that's being used. And finally, the advanced earth science, just changing the prerequisite, the way it's written, to the advanced physical science. That's the course that leads into that one. That's the one that's in the sequence to get there, and it wasn't clear the way it was written. It should be that course.
Dr. Coleman?
Very quickly, I understand the Virginia Department of Education requirements, but just real quick, number one, you mentioned committee. Who's on the committee?
It's for the group that gets together to look at this, or the people from my department, which are the specialists, the principal from the school, the guidance counselor, counselors at the school, and they solicit input from all the teachers in the building. So they bring all that to that, and then we go through all those the suggestions and make the appropriate changes.
And obviously, this is not a perfunctory task because you are bringing some changes.
Right.
But I'm trying to understand later how both of these processes work out to really help us narrow the achievement gap and all of the gaps as it relates to. And I know that once we have the courses, there's another issue about how students get placed in courses. But I am running into parents who have students who end up in one class, they're not challenged, and they really need to be in another class. And I'm just trying to make sense out of that. But I thank you, Dr. Coleman, for what you're doing. But I'm just
on page,
wanted to understand the
on
process.
page 4, that they talk about in determining the right level of a course for a student, there are 3 ways in which they can access by achievement score, teacher recommendation, or parental request. So a parent has the right to request that, and then the school puts together. But that's what Dr. Coleman is saying, but I think we need to let parents know that this is a request.
And that gets back to Ethel's family engagement piece and all of the stuff from Dr. Castanino. I'm just excited about the future, and thank you, Bill. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. But when we start talking about programs of study, that's huge.
It is.
And thank you.
Ms. Carter.
With Dr. Coleman, so if a parent requests that they want their child changed to another class or a more challenging class, what's the process and what's the turnaround time? What do they need to do to request? So if I want my child, I say my child is not being challenged, I want my child to move to, so what do I need to do?
The first thing you do would be contact the school and speak with the guidance department, and then make the request of them, and then that.
And there are requirements on here. The 70% or higher, it lists on page 18 kind of what you need to have. I mean, the parent can request it, but then the school will get this information together and then look at it.
All right. So, okay.
But I do think what do parents actually need to do, and we need to make sure that parents know that process.
And what if they already know some of that, but they still feel that the child can do it?
You mean if they don't meet the criteria?
Yes, but they feel that they still need to be challenged.
Sometimes we ask that parents talk to the actual teacher, and it depends on the grade too and the subject area. And many times teachers have the flexibility. I know if I just look at the elementary program and the Go Math program itself, they have on grade level, above grade level activities and resources. So if I have mastered whatever it is that we're doing, maybe there is within that curriculum a more expansive and challenging thing that I can get in place of, in lieu of, so that you're not doing you have to finish this worksheet before you get to the one that's at your level. So a lot of times that does occur as you get up into the upper level courses where kids try to, I want to double up in math and skip courses. That does require a much larger conversation with guidance department and usually a supervisor and that. But my recommendation to parents every time when they're like, my kid is not being challenged, that first conversation should be with the child's teacher. Because the teacher may not be aware that a child is feeling like I'm not being challenged, or I'd like to do something else, or the work is easy for me. And sometimes kids get creative where they're like, this is easy for me, and it takes me 10 minutes, but I'm making it look like 30, so I don't have to do anything else. And we don't want that either. We want to find those kids and make sure that we're appropriately challenging them. So the minute that you feel like, if you have a young child and he or she is not bringing home work that you feel like they're just acing us at home, that first call should always be to the classroom teacher, because if anybody's going to know what's going on the day-to-day, it'll be the classroom teacher first, and then work your way up if you feel like we've exhausted everything that there is to offer for this kid. And we've had that where yes, we need to either promote them to another advanced level if that's available, or some other means.
And sometimes, and I repeat sometimes, what this ends up looking like is a kid that's not being challenged. It turns into behavior problems, and then it speaks to some of the earlier discussion where you're having kids being put out simply because they are not able to process what to do with themselves and whom they are around in a class in which they could be doing more challenging work, or the curriculum itself applicable to their realities and the toxicity of their environments in which they come.
And the other thing is, I will say, we do have people who are in it and looking, and particularly looking at grades and wondering why aren't you performing at a certain level. We have numerous staff that have, for lack of a better word, adopted some kids, myself included, that are just, we go in there and it's not that they're not being challenged, they're not working at their potential. And sometimes you don't have a parent that advocates for that, and that those kids could be caught in what I call the CDF spiral. That's what I'm doing, even though I'm more of an AB potential kids, and they need somebody just to give them a little push. And we do have some staff that are looking at children and work with them. I call it case managing. I don't know what other word to use. To do those kinds of things, just to make sure that they are applying themselves and not selling themselves short and underperforming, as well as children who are, maxing out the things that we have. It's a work in progress, but it is a lot of good work to be done.
Ms. Carter.
The other one is when the course says transportation may be necessary. Does the school provide it? Okay. And the other one, where are we with elevating or trying to enhance with the gifted program for middle school? I know this has been a topic since I've been on the board, and so where are we in that process?
We're not anywhere yet. No, we haven't started that committee that actually looks at that. I mean, and it's in our plan. I don't have the plan sitting in front of me right now, the actual start date. It is on our to-do list, but we just couldn't do it all at one time right now. So.
And going back to the criteria, one of the criteria is just parents' request. So.
Mr. Harvey, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I do have a question. When it talks about the achievement score, it lists quarterly assignments, or quarterly assessments, excuse me. Are they the grade reports that the parents are receiving, or is there a separate assessment that parents could request to see?
I'll let you.
Right. We do a quarterly assessment, each quarter, obviously, for to see where students are performing, and those are the things that we look at for the formative information. From that, we look at that, and of course we consider grades as well on the report cards. But
do we share that with the parents?
The quarterly assessments, yes.
Okay.
Any additional questions? While you're looking through this, if you do have some, just send them in. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Let's see. Now we're going to LCS Board Instruction and Program Policies and Regulations.
Okay. So this is curriculum and instruction. So again, Dr. Coleman and I, and these are your first time seeing these policies. And I will say the curriculum policies are probably the last large batch conversion that we have that are still, we're going from numbered policies to VSBA policies. So you'll probably see a lot more of these coming forward. But we tried to group them as best as possible. So in that first section, and you either have a printed copy or the link to it, the first couple policies, instructional goals and objectives, learning objectives, retaking SOLs, testing, and accreditation. Those are the VSBA policies that actually have the correct language aligned to what we do and what the current standards are. Those policies are up for your first review and then later adoption. The middle group, AD, is a policy that the governance committee had brought forth, I think in May, the educational philosophy. So it was previously adopted, but what we did was add the mission statement to that policy. And then IKC is a new policy for grading student evaluation. We still have to work on the regulation for that, but we added to the VSBA language the process of appealing a grade. There's always been a process for parents to do that, but we wanted it included in the policy. You'll see that. And then J and ZR, we had to make a change because there was a fee that was listed that is no longer a fee. But in doing that, we thought, wow, every time a fee changes, we have to bring this whole policy back. So then we made a bigger change to say, why don't we reference that the fee chart is on the website, and that way we can just update the fee chart without having to constantly bring the policy back. So you will see both the removal of the specific fee that's no longer applicable, but you'll also see, we'll post this on our website. So the policy will remain consistent, but as fees change, they'll be updated on our website and communicated to families accordingly. And then in light of some of the work of the Equity Task Force, that they had started this last year, it didn't make it to their priority when they presented to you in August, but was still on their list. And we also had additional people come for public comment. We pulled all of our non-discrimination policies, equal employment, equal opportunity for educational access for kids, everywhere where we could find it. And we wanted to make the language consistent across those policies. When we laid them all out, we found that the language was not consistent across the policies. And then we also added and included in those 5 policies gender identity and sexual orientation as well. And the mindset that we had behind that was, in our schools, either as a student or as an employee or even as a visitor, we're just not going to tolerate any kind of harassment, period. We just want a very cohesive, collaborative, welcoming, inclusive community. So while we're changing the policy language to match, just recognize that the practice that we have is that of inclusivity and a positive spirit that we want to definitely have. So our training will reflect that. Adding the kids' voice into that is important to us to make sure that they're heard and that we do some things. So you'll see those changes in those 5 policies. And then on the next page, page 102, you'll see a list of numbered policies which we matched up to all of these VSBA policies, so we're recommending that they be deleted. We reviewed them and made sure that they were included in the VSBA lettered policy.
Madam Chair, can you refresh my memory on who's on this working group?
It is myself, Belle, Sharon, Tommy, Willis, Gloria / Latanya.
Well, you all should be commended for all of this great work of looking at it, and I'm an advocate for us doing what's right about the policies dealing with protected classes and so forth. So I certainly will look at it more. I'm very appreciative.
Any other comments or questions, Dr. Brown?
Just a quick question on the fee table. It makes a lot of sense to change it so it's on a website. Those fees are staying the same, and if they do change, does that come back to the board as a
we would definitely have to communicate that and make sure we're not slipping something in there. But yes, we will definitely bring that up or make, some of it might just be a state change, but some of it might be our change that might come from our finance committee to the board recommendation.
Yep. Thank you.
This is for our first preview tonight and up for action in January. meeting, January 14th. So if you have any questions, just send them in. Thank you. All right, that moves us to the Central Virginia Governor's School for Science and Technology 2019-20 budget. We are just being asked to be the fiscal agent.
That's correct. So we, the Lynchburg City School Board serves as fiscal agent for several regional schools and programs. And once a year, we will bring to you their board's budget, and then we also provide a copy of the minutes to show that they've approved it. And we present that to you, and then we ask for you to approve for us to be that fiscal agent and to implement their budget. So the first one we're bringing tonight is the Governor's School, and their board approved their 2019-20 operating budget in the amount of $1,168,200. Lynchburg currently has the 42 slots of students that attend that school. And what we're asking for tonight is for you to take action to approve that we serve as their fiscal agent and implement that budget.
Any questions?
So moved.
Just a minute. Let's get a second, and then I'll call for questions. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Dr. Brennan?
This is just a general question for the comments. So, for example, in Governor's School, the instructional salaries increased by $16,000. Are the Governor's schools and other programs, are they based on Lynchburg City school salaries? Can you help us? And also the question about fair share of some of the things that are done regionally, like the Governor's School and the STEM Academy. As far as I think healthcare was one of the issues we were worried about, are all the different areas paying their equal amounts. So I think number one is, are the salaries Lynchburg City school salaries?
They do try to follow our salary scale, and they were happy that we actually increased salaries, so they continue, but they don't have to. So they can set their boards can set their own salaries. They just happen to adopt ours. That answers the first question. The second question with regard to their health insurance, yes, they are. We do the.
They do participate in our health insurance plan.
But they pay their fee part of it. We backed off of the other, the differential between the claims pieces of it because it was just too much. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? We have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, now go to the STEM Academy budget.
Okay, so we are presenting their budget for the 2019-20. It was for $320,750, which was an increase of $10,600 from their prior year. And we're just presenting that budget and their minutes and asking for you to take action to, again, approve for us to be that fiscal agent and to administer their approved budget.
Okay. Questions? Dr. Brennan?
Yeah, I just want to point out, being the representative on this board, that this does include a $500 increase in tuition that we've talked about before. So tuition went up to $5,900 per student on this budget. This is an FYI, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Carter. Any further discussion or questions? Ms. Carter?
Do these different organizations have a certain budget template that they follow, or do we give them guidance? Or since we're the fiscal agent, do we try to give them guidance?
We provide any guidance that they request. Some do request more of our assistance, and others have been in place and they have their own template, and we don't dictate that they have to use our template, but some programs we do provide more assistance than others.
I think I had a motion in a second.
Yes.
I do. Okay, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Now we go with the STEP Links program, their budget.
Yes, their budget that was approved by their board for the 2019-20 year is $41,011, which is a decrease from the prior year budget. Their program is solely funded through donations. Lynchburg City Schools does make a donation annually to this program. Again, we have their copy of their budget and their minutes, and we're asking for you to approve that as well for us to be that fiscal agent and implement that budget.
Madam Chair, I'm so thankful of the sustainability of this group and move the adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Laurel Regional School Budget.
Okay, so the final budget we're bringing to you is Laurel, and Laurel is a little more complex because they have two separate programs within the school. So they have a center base, and they have a center base budget, and then they have a non-center base. So we have included both of those, and what we're asking is for you to, we're recommending that you authorize that we be fiscal agent and implement their budget. The combined two programs is $5,033,200.26.
Any questions?
Question
Dr.
on
Nilles?
decreases in funding, what the cause or reason for that is?
They have had an enrollment decrease,
Okay.
so they've had to make adjustments for the non-center base. I'm not sure if because there's two different budgets. The non-center base, some of the regional localities have pulled out of the non-center base program, so you'll see a significant decrease in that. For the center base, it's solely that the student enrollment has gone down and they've had to adjust accordingly.
To my question, this may not be pertinent, but do we have any students in the graduation cycle for this year from LCS?
At Laurel. I'm on Laurel.
Jackie will get that information to Dr. Evans just sent to you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve.
Ms. Carter, is there a second? Second. Dr. Brennan? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Yay, we're through the budgets. The next one is, came about because we realized that when we get requests for special presentations that we probably need a process to follow so that we know how to do that. And so I would like to have a brief conversation about how you would like to proceed with this, whether you want to send suggestions into me, or you want to send it to a committee, whether you want to get a work group together. We want to make sure that whatever we do, we're fair to everyone that wants to come before the board. Whether we want to assign, suggestions have been that we assign one school per month, or 2 schools per quarter, or that suggestions, requests need to go through the principal to the superintendent to keep a list of things. I found that we want, the suggestions from board members when I spoke with individual board members was that we really want to have a process in place prior to doing anything so that we can be fair about how we do it. Ms. Carter.
Well, we haven't recognized the girls' track team, the winners from the Ann Spencer contest, poetry contest, and there really does need to be some process, because I know there are a lot of times where we have programs that teachers do, but a lot of them are recognized during the Partners in Education gala that we go to in the springtime. And then there's so many creative things that are going on in the 21st century. Just some of the things you see there, there's so many. If we recognized everyone and had everyone come, we'll have longer board meetings. So I don't know what the process would be, but I think some of the really amazing.
Well,
but they're all amazing, but I don't know.
We have so many good things happening that it would be nice to share that. Dr. Snow?
It is
My
relative.
recollection in my first few months here was that we did a lot of that.
We did.
And then it just seemed to stop. So I kind of miss some of those highlights. And you're right, there are a lot of great things going on, and we don't have time for all of them. But it would be nice to have some
To showcase.
way to
Yeah.
exceptional
Through a
things.
transition.
Yeah.
Serious transition around that time too.
I understand.
Dr. Coleman?
Whatever we're going to do, unfortunately, I do not have a recommendation to solve what we're looking for, but it needs to be linked to family and community engagement in my mind. And then in some bodies, and of course I'm not speaking beyond my thinking because that's all as deep as I've gotten right now, but for some bodies, if you've got 9 members, 7 members, or 5 members, then maybe that board members just will have the weight of recommending somebody, and if a board member recommends it, then it would be considered.
Ms. Evans?
I'd love to have a schedule for the schools, like monthly. And then everybody would have the opportunity from every school.
In some school divisions, they have their school board rep talk to the other schools, like Lincoln Middle and Lincoln Elementary, and they bring information from those schools about special things that are going on in feeder schools. That was one way that some schools do it. Others set up a monthly schedule. Some do what I did on this one, that I got a request and I sent it out for board input. That gets quite time consuming. So I really just want to make sure that whatever we do from the beginning, we are able to sustain it. We don't want to get to a meeting where we say, this meeting is going to go till 10 or 10:30 at night, but so we're not going to do a special presentation. I want us to be fair. And I'm more than happy to take suggestions and come up with a proposal, or like I said, send it to a committee or what group.
I don't want to send it to a group.
Ms. Darby.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make the recommendation that since we now, each of us as school board members, are associated with particular schools, that those schools, through their principal, could possibly contact us as board members, and that we could bring that to the chair for processing for the agenda. And then I think that we would, respect wise counsel of the chair, as time allotments would be available based on the overall agenda. And if it need be that one particular school, or we only have maybe, say, 2 presentations, we can handle those 2 presentations. But if we have 6 requests, then you could come back and say, okay, can you go back to your school and ask, would they be willing to make their presentation at the following board meeting?
Dr. Nellis?
I was going to say, Dr. Senator, brought up the point, past history, and that really was, I guess, organized by administration. Not trying to dump on you, but in terms of, and they took into account, which schools and, how much time.
And it would go through the principal to
I don't know
how
it came through, but it was pretty much administration but that was in response to a request from us. Hey, we want to get, there's a lot of good stuff going on in the school.
We want to tell it.
We want to tell it,
Some of it was tied to the sports season, so.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to be
Yes,
3 months later recognizing a track team or something like that, so.
And I particularly don't want to put more on saying, here you go, do this too, if we could do it.
All right, so how about if I take all of these suggestions, and once Barbara gives them to me, and I'll send it out, and we can you can give me feedback, and let's try to we'll talk about this in December at our work session briefly. We've got one agenda item that we're talking about, the volunteer policy, but I think we could certainly, this is a priority in terms of telling our story and the good news and the good work that our faculty and students are. Are you comfortable with that? Yes.
Can I just ask a question, because I know that in the past you did have 2 schools, I believe, represent every board meeting. And I think the concern was time, that they were taking up too much time. So I would, in your discussion or whatever you send to Susan, include your time factor.
Right.
And whether or not your preference is, we'd love to have folks come and present at a regular meeting where we have business, or is it a work session meeting where you can be more engaging and have less? And what your expectation of the presenters are, because I will tell you, my staff get real excited. And I will say to them, right, after we say this all the time, you just get like 5 to 10 minutes, which is really 30 when they do it. So just consider that whenever you send in your responses to it, what your preference is, and that will help us better kind of figure out what we.
And I do think we went from 2 formal meetings to 1. In the work session, we tended to really use topics that we wanted to really. So if we do go to schools presenting, we'll have to also think about that time. I also do not want to add anything more to principals and teachers. I mean, it takes time to do those things, and so I think about is this a requirement or is it an opportunity?
Right.
But I don't want, I feel like if we say, you have to present this month, that
Right.
might not suit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Harvey?
And I kind of see this sort of following our public comment outline, that there's as you mentioned, there's a time limit per speaker, and there's a maximum that per meeting that we would allocate for this. And that's where we all have to work together to figure out the best way to accommodate all of that, all of the requests to come before the board. But I do think if we are the ones, it gives us the opportunity to engage with our schools other than, just attending events and so forth, but we can actually brag on the schools that we each get to represent, which to me is exciting.
Great. I'll put this into a format and send it out and wait for you to get back with me. Does that work?
Excellent.
Yep. Okay. Great. All right. Superintendent's comments.
Sure. Both Personnel and Parent Advisory are meeting December 12th, so nothing to report there. Just a couple quick updates. Huge thank you to the Ed Foundation. I believe they put their press release out today that they supported 38 classroom innovation grants. I think one of them was T.C. Miller, was a classroom innovation grant for $89,000 in a grant cycle. So definitely huge thank you to the Ed Foundation for supporting our staff, but also huge thank you to our staff because this is something they do above and beyond what is required of them as educators, classroom teachers, and so on. In the Heritage presentation, they mentioned the celebration for the girls track and field team from last year that the city council did. So I had the opportunity to go to that, which was really great. And we did have some students come back because remember, some of these young ladies have graduated. And that's part of the challenge, but having a season that ends into the end of the school year. So we have to get a little bit better about catching them quicker before they're off to college, but I was happy to celebrate with them. And on the flip side of that, a couple weeks ago, I actually was a superstar volunteer at the Girls on a Run 5K for our little ones who ran, and yeah, that was very impressive. The number of children, we had probably close to 160 girls that participated in that 5K run. And, Dr. Brennan and I did a 5K run. We both looked at Luke's time at 16 minutes. I think if you doubled that, I still wasn't there yet. But, it's a good goal to set for us. I think some of the young ladies at the Girls on the Run could do that. But, again, thank you to all of our volunteers who were there, not only coaching our girls. We had adults who were running with the young ladies. There were a lot of volunteers who helped hand out medals. Just a huge effort to put it on, but it was worth all the faces just to see the young ladies complete. And everybody completed it, which was wonderful to do that. I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago also to go to the Legacy Museum and celebrate in the AKA Memorial dedication to Marjorie Hill. Very well attended for the AKAs, one of the oldest sororities that was started here, and just the opportunities for women that have resulted from that was great. If you haven't had an opportunity to go see the bench is beautiful, and they have a very nice pathway that leads up to the bench with bricks for people who have donated and have been a part of that sorority. So it was a great celebration. I was happy to be part of that. Thank you to everybody who helped serve on Thanksgiving at our schools. Some of us were at the VSBA, so we couldn't get here to do that, but I heard that was a lot of fun. And wonderful to do that. And thanks to our nutrition department, they always come up with some great things for our students. At DESI, we had the opportunity during American Ed Week to go over and read to students and be characters, which was really great to do that. I was Mae Jemison, who was an astronaut, ballerina, a teacher. The kids didn't know all of that about her, so it was great to share that. Kudos to Ethel and team for the pie visioning meeting that we had, which was pretty powerful. And again, looking forward to the work
and lots more work to do that we have with PI. Very well attended and great ideas. So thank you for putting that together. Had a couple other meetings with just community folks. We met with Kumbaya to talk about some of their programs. Really interesting things that we have going on. I got to go to the University of Lynchburg to sit in on a discussion about their new teacher mentor program and how that aligns with the work that we're doing in our strategic plan. So we're real excited about that and some of the initiatives that are coming from that. Congratulations to all of our fall sports teams. I mean, our kids are just doing phenomenal things. They just really blow my mind. And they study and have high GPAs on top of it too. So just real proud of them. And sometimes I just feel like there's so much I can't get to everything. But if you live in Lynchburg, you can't say there's nothing to do in Lynchburg, because there's plenty for us to do if we just go celebrate our kids. And I know Dr. Copeland had to get off real quick. We have Scrooge coming up as one of the plays that are coming up too. So if you have nothing else to do, you can definitely go see that. That's coming up. But lastly, and I saved this one for last, I'm so proud of this particular student who will be not only attending the Virginia Society for Technology in Education this weekend, but also will be presenting at the conference, our student presenter, Mr. Chris Murata. And that's huge. Think about how many conventions you've gone to and how we would all love to have a student presenter as one of our presenters. So I just want to compliment you and say kudos. And of course, you got to text me and let me know how all that goes. This is the Sunday that you're going to be presenting, and you're doing work on fishing, I believe is your topic. So you want to give us a quick 2-minute summary of what you're doing, what your research is about?
So I'm basically looking at the threat of phishing on K-12 education. So like as a whole, kind of looking at the numbers and seeing where the risk is and looking at, I guess, ways to combat that.
So we are so proud of you, and we look forward to getting all the wonderful emails from everybody that's jealous that you are a student and that you're doing this presentation. So good luck, and again, text us and let us know how that goes. But we wish you the best of that. And that's my report.
Thank you. All right, board comments, Ms. Evans?
I just want to come back really quick to the policy that Sharon and I had the meeting on, because we went over it pretty quickly. But I just, we have the comments every week about the community, and I just wanted to say how happy I was to sit in that meeting and have every person in that meeting say, of course we're going to add the language that covers every person in Lynchburg City Schools. And I just was very happy about that, and just wanted to say that again.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey?
I also got to attend the PI conference and was really excited. There was a lot of really good comments and a lot of good feedback from the business community. So I was really excited about that, and looking forward to the possibilities ahead for Partners in Education. I also wanted to, I brought 2 examples of the products that have come from T.C. Miller's art class. One is a lighthouse, which also ties in with their STEM program. The lighthouse will actually light up. And one of the other grades was doing a birdhouse. So this is an example, very creative. You'll notice the rooftop garden. There's also a little cat who resides in this birdhouse, so I guess it's guarding to keep the birds out. But really proud of the students and their creativity, and I wanted to take the opportunity to showcase that and give a shout out to Ms. Lipscomb, because she's done an excellent job with both of these 2 projects in their art classes. Also had the opportunity to attend a YMCA program that showcased the Power Scholars Academy. We got some really positive feedback. One of the things that's really exciting to me is that they have started to really track that. And they have shown 3+ months gain in reading and 2.5+ months gain in math, and that is substantial. That is really exciting. to hear that. So each of the students are getting up to 40 additional hours of reading and math during the summer program. So that's incredible. Also had the opportunity to attend the Virginia School Board Association conference in Williamsburg with some of my colleagues. We had a awesome time. There was a lot of great classes that were presented, including our very own Dr. Edwards, probably one of the best attended classes, and we heard lots of positive comments about the class at the end. And so we were all really excited, and we started to get a little protective of our superintendent, as all the other school systems were around. But I just wanted to say excellent job and commend you for the work that you did. The big takeaway that I heard from that conference was we really need to tell the LCS story and all of our success that our students and teachers are having. So many times we can hear the struggles that we might sometimes have, the small bumps in the road, but we miss telling about those mountaintop experiences, and so we really need to do that. And lastly, I wanted to send a shout out to our school nutrition department. As I undertook my school board training, I was just totally amazed, and I really think that our community needs to know a little bit more about some of the things that our departments do. So a couple notes on that. The school nutrition department provides breakfast, lunch, and snack under the federal school lunch program throughout the school year at each of our schools. They have an operating budget of over $5 million, and most of that is federally funded. So there's only about 10% that are local dollars, but 90% of that comes from federal. But they also provide a summer feeding program, which many times we can overlook that when we just think about school lunch. But there are a lot of different community groups that come into play there. We have 20 feeding sites. So our staff does such an incredible job. In the summertime, they serve over 23,000 breakfasts and 35,000 lunch in a typical summer. So again, hats off to them. Interesting comment or figure to share, 62% of our students receive free lunch. So, that is something that our community really needs to work on addressing, and that was one of the figures that we shared during our meeting with our area legislatures. One of the things that Ms. Morris mentions is that no student is denied a meal. And I think that is just a powerful statement. So I wanted to thank her and her colleagues for the great job that they do. Next meeting that I have is tomorrow with Dr. Edwards at the Governor's School. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Brennan?
I just wanted to also, I had an opportunity to stay for the part of the VSBA meeting, which was great. The high point clearly was doing the 5K with Dr. Edwards. We knew Dr. Coleman was there in spirit. He didn't actually make it physically, but he was in the vicinity. So, next year, he'll be there.
I will do it next year.
We'll walk it.
That's what y'all said last.
Just briefly, I did have the opportunity to see the Elephant's Graveyard EC Glass, which was really great, and Annie Junior Dunbar, who once again, Morgan Cook was another star in that program, but they do, our theater program is doing so great at EC Glass and Dunbar, I'm sure the other schools too. I also went to Deerington to participate in Education Week, which was great with Dr. Edwards, and represented Trevor Noah in my own little white way, but it was fun, and I got asked back on doing it again this week, so I think it was successful, it was fun to do. I want to join Ms. Evans in congratulating the committee and the administration for addressing the issues that are brought to us so frequently about gender identification and sexual orientation. I think that's great that we passed those, and thank you all for your work on that. And then lastly, one of my nieces at Glass was able to participate in the Project Inclusion that Dr. Edwards has referred to, and it was a life-changing event for her. She was a very shy, quiet young woman who came back saying that was just really an awesome group, and the relationship she has with the other students and with the faculty, it really sounded like it was phenomenal. So thank the staff and the group that worked on that. Thank you.
Dr. Zanat?
And I'd like to say thanks for sending me to the conference. In addition to everything other people said, a big takeaway from the early bird session was how to promote your district by personalizing things. You know, too often we get boiled down to salaries and steps and scores and numbers and, you know, and we're talking about actual children, kids. And so I'm happy that we're revisiting the idea of showcasing what our students do and how exceptional they are, because they're the reason for all the numbers, and they're more than just a test score. And it's unfortunate that we get graded on those things because there's all these wonderful other things that happen. There was one other thing, but I forgot what it was.
Okay. Ms. Carter?
And I think it's a great thing that we have a problem, a good problem, that we have so many things to highlight that we're concerned about how to prioritize them. That's an awesome thing to have. And as people have already talked about, Dr. Draper's presentation about how public schools are getting such a bad name and rap, and when they really are doing well and they're really progressive and providing excellent education. I'm a product of public schools, and I've done well, I think.
We would agree with that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Others may not, but and also I was able to leave there with my conflict of interest completed by the time allotted, and then also just want to another thing is just say I really want to hear more about our gifted program to see that get off and really get going for the middle school.
Dr. Nellis? Dr. Coleman?
Yes, very brief. I would like to acknowledge the Perrymont had a event at McDonald's, and I supported that and purchased some items there to eat to support the school. I thought that was very nice. I missed the Fort Hill Thanksgiving dinner piece because we were in Williamsburg. And I do want to thank everyone for the legislative breakfast, and thank you, Madam Chair and Committee Chair and everyone. I just thought that was a good step in the right direction. And I did submit a report in writing, so I would not dare read that to you. I am thankful to School Board Member Gary Harvey for helping me to get there, and School Board Member Sharon Carter for helping me to get back. And we had a really great time in between, and everybody to share. And as you read through this, I stumbled upon under item 3 under learning points, the Commonwealth Institute for Fiscal Analysis. And Dr. Gupta is not here tonight, but for finance folk and all of us, that's a really good place to look at some comparative pieces around how monies are being spent and proportionalities of that and what can be done for support. And so that's a good thing. And I do want to echo once again how outstanding Dr. Edwards was, and all of that is in writing. And then lastly, Madam Chair, Debbie Wilder, some of you may or may not be familiar with her, but she is a marvelous example of an individual EC Glass graduate who loved both high schools, who would go in and out of schools for kids and helping people in marvelous ways. And she recently died, and I certainly honor her memory.
Thank you. Ms. Carter, you sit here.
I just wanted to say that Dr. Edwards did an excellent job on her presentation. I forget, what was the name of it? What was the name of the presentation?
The Unspeakables.
Yes, the Unspeakables, to make it speakable. It was awesome. The participation and the insight gain was just wonderful. And as Mr. Harvey said, we really needed to watch her to make sure that she wasn't poached. Yes. Yes.
While you all were in Williamsburg having fun, I had the privilege of working lunch at Bedford Hills. It started at 10:30 in the morning, and I left at 1:30, and they were still working. And I was exhausted. I think I cut about 50 pumpkin pies, and that was the first thing the kids ate. They had dessert first and turkey last. But really gave me an appreciation for the amount of work and how hard it is and how pleasant the nutrition workers were and with the kids. It was. I would do it again in a heartbeat, and I hope to do it at other schools as well. I also attended the PIE work group, and thank you. It was really a great effort, and I feel like some great things are going to come out of it. With that, I want to remind you that our next school board work session is scheduled for December 17th. The focus of the discussion will be the LCS volunteer policy and regulations. Winter break is December 23rd through January the 3rd. The next school board meeting will be held on Tuesday, January the 14th at 5 p.m. in the boardroom in the administration building. With that, we are adjourned.